We're live, and welcome to Writer's Life, place where you get the sight, sound, smells, taste of my particular writer's life, where you get the truth about the writer's life. Subscribe if you haven't already. Punch the like button, tap the bell for notifications, so you don't miss out on one single exciting video. Finally, I have a guest. Finally, things have calmed down enough for me to have a guest.
There you go.
I have the Sultan of Stories, the Ayatollah of Fictionola.
Oh man,
Troy, the lamb lies down on Broadway. Lambert, he's taking 30 minutes out of his. What conference are you at now?
I'm actually not at one. I'm at the end of an online conference, and my presentations are over. But I had 3 summits this weekend that were all happening at the same time. So luckily, I was able to record my presentations ahead of time. But it was nuts. It has been absolutely nuts. But yeah, thank goodness I'm on a break right now until I go to Vegas in November, as far as conferences are concerned.
Right.
But we're running a November novel challenge thing similar to Nano, only without all the political garbage and stuff that's surrounding Nano at the moment.
Okay, good.
Yes, anyway, all that kind of stuff. So I'm prepping for that. And I'm writing. I'm in an anthology for Down and Out Books, so I'm finishing up that story so I can send it over.
Nice of them to invite me.
You're not in the one with the musical one?
I'm like, oh no, I did get that.
Oh, you didn't do it?
I didn't do it. I decided not to do it.
I found an obscure.
I couldn't think of anything good enough.
I found an obscure tune written by Elton John and that other guy called "The Wide-Eyed and Laughing." So that's what my story. It's
awesome.
pretty messed up story. But anyway, I like that. I like messed up stories, so it'll be fun.
All right, so, Troy. Yeah. Every time I have you on, you make me feel guilty.
Oh,
I feel like I'm not doing something. Like I feel like that kid that you get to school, you got your lunch, and you got all your shit, and here's Troy Lambert. Did you study for like the social studies test? I didn't know there was a social studies test. I didn't know. Like, and you just sort of shake your head and like move on. Like, what a dumbass. So anyway, well, that sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Who's the editor of that one?
The editor is Dawn. I can't remember her last name. I've actually worked with her before on another anthology. I can't remember her last name, but I've known her for a while. She's edited some big anthologies for like Bouchercon and stuff like that. So, she liked my idea, so I'm gonna roll with it.
I just, after espousing months and months, if not years, espousing, we got to hang on to our IP and all that sort of stuff. We got to hang on to every bit of our IP and all that sort of stuff. I was like, you know what? I'm going to sign a couple contracts with Down and Out.
Yeah.
And I think there's a place for it. I don't think, so I went back to being the hybrid author.
There is. Well, that's me. I'm doing a project next year with Spotify. It's kind of top secret, sort of, at the moment.
Cool. Tell us about that. Anything you can tell us.
But anyway, so what I'm going to tell you is basically I'm doing a series of short stories. I wrote them a long time ago, just haven't done anything with them. And so Spotify is branching out into short audio, and intentionally doing short audio instead of the long novella audio, stuff like that. Because short audio does not sell on Audible, but the way Spotify Premium would work is you get 15 hours of free audiobooks with your premium Spotify subscription anyway. And so short little, and people like those short little stories on their drive. So I'm going to do 52 short stories that I've written before. All of them short. Awesome. They're 15, 20 minutes. But I'm going to do them audio first next year. So next year, the only place they'll be available initially is on Spotify Premium and other places on Audible. Well, that'll be the only place they're available, not on ACX. They won't be available on Amazon, stuff like that.
Fantastic.
Because nobody buys shorts on Amazon because of the credit system, the way it works. So they'll be available there first as audio first before they're ever available in print or as ebooks. And then it'll be I'll release one a week for an entire year. Then I'll do a Kickstarter. There'll be a bunch of merch surrounding that. And then they'll come out in print and ebook the following year. in some collections. So it's going to be really fun. I don't have I can't reveal a lot of details about that yet, other than you'll find out about it January 1st, probably sooner than January 1st. So,
wow, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
And like, what do you get, like, per download? You get...
Yep, it's kind of same thing as people who stream music. It's a little better than that. So it's kind of similar in payment structure to Kindle Unlimited, except that it's not exclusive, and the only thing they get is the audio rights. That's it. They don't even get exclusive audio rights. They just get the rights to that short form audio. So it lets me keep my IP, still put it wherever I want, do something different with it. But by doing it audio first, the hope is that I build some momentum for the ebook and print when they come out, in kind of a completely different format, and it's kind of its own world. And then once that initial push is over, then I'll probably invite other authors to come in and write in that same world, that same universe, with some different things. And it'll just be a lot of fun. So
yeah, and I mean, do the math. I mean, like, if after 52 stories, if you make $2 or $1 a day on just one story per day, you know, you're going to be taking in some nice cashish.
There's some nice cash involved there, and it's also just, I mean, getting your name out there and getting people interested in your other audiobooks, because now they can see, oh yeah, well, he's got these shorts, but he's got long form audiobooks on Spotify as well. So there's a couple of my audiobooks that I'm going to actually, their Audible division, their Audible Acquisitions division, is going to get the audio rights to those. So, but all they're getting is the audio rights, is kind of protecting my IP at the same time. Kind of interesting new stuff. It's a new development that actually places are interested in that. Like, all we want is your audio. I'm like, you can have my audio. That's good.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Again, like, another licensing opportunity that just you get to keep your IP. I mean, that's fantastic. See, that's what you're all looking for, folks. It's exactly what you're looking for.
Thinking outside the box.
Of the pie. Yeah,
think outside the box.
Absolutely. Speaking outside the box, I get this feeling that Kindle Vella, I feel like it's almost like passe to talk about Kindle Vella at this point. But I'm getting the feeling that they're like inches away from the drain.
I'm not sure, actually, because I know I know of a steamy romance author and some of the steamy romance people who are actually making money on Kindle Vella, and they're still paying out bonuses. But I think outside of a few select genres, I think Kindle Vella is, the problem is there's so many other options out there right now, right, for subscription type things, and author that aren't exclusive. So the biggest downfall right now that Amazon has is that they want you to be exclusive, and nobody else is doing that to you. So there are genres where being in Kindle Unlimited and Kindle Vella and being exclusive to that makes total sense. But not very many. Like, for the most part, that does not make sense. So that's I'm all about wide. Number one is the wide distribution type of things, and we can talk about that because we'll talk about some aggregators in a minute. And I'm all about, if Kindle Vella is like, it has to be exclusive for a limited amount of time, that would be the only amount of time that anything was licensed to Kindle Vella, and I'm just not, at the moment, I'm not doing anything with that. That's it's just not. There's no payout for that. I'm not getting enough feedback. I'm not learning anything by doing that. That makes it worth my while to do.
It's very difficult to sell hard-boiled fiction on that. I mean, I for the past 2 years, I've put up like a chapter a day of something, and I went from making like 4 figures a month with it to down to like low 3 figures, to now it's down to like $20-$30 here and there. And I'm like, well, it's not cost effective.
I mean, $20-$30 is $20-$30, but I'm not going to go out of my way for it. You know what I mean? When there's so many other opportunities, you know what I mean?
On the other hand, it's almost like I could maybe switch it up, and if I want to, like, sort of, I think it was Harvey Stambro who said that's your version of writing in public. Harlan Ellison made that famous. And I think I'd be better off switching that up to Substack.
Well, yeah, Substack or something else. Substack is another good option. It's an interesting option. It wasn't really viable for fiction until recently. Now it's become more viable for fiction. There's some other things that I've considered doing on Substack, just because it is a great platform for some things. But more and more, I think authors are moving towards that subscription type thing and getting people that are invested in being a part of your fandom and your community and that type of thing, as opposed to being a part of the Amazon ecosystem or the Audible ecosystem. And some readers are moving that way and some aren't. And that's okay. I'll take the ones that will move that way, because I think, your lifetime value of those customers, for one thing, is greater because you're giving them more, So that's where I'm kind of at with that too. Is like, these people need to follow where I can make myself a living, not where it's easiest for them because Amazon has this system. Okay, well, I don't care about Amazon's system. What I care about is Troy being able to eat, that type of thing. So,
yes, exactly, and a little money left over to invest or whatever. But I mean, we were talking about Down and Out Books, for instance, and I feel like everything's like a pendulum, and like at one point, all I did was just publish traditionally. And I depended on the advances and stuff like that. I mean, D&O offers you contracts without the advance, but good back end. But and then I went completely this way for a couple of years, where I was just completely independent. And I find like I'm moving back to the middle, where I'm going to do both. And I feel like I'm missing out on opportunities that I don't get as an indie by publishing in the more traditional agent style. And whereas, like financially, I feel like the indie model is better inevitably and long term. But then again, if you work with certain publishers and you have a decent enough contract, your rights aren't locked up for that long.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, so the thing is, there are pros and cons to each, as we always talk about, right?
Sure.
And so what's always been good for me is to get some of the best of both worlds. So I just evaluate each project. Like, maybe Down and Out will get a couple of my standalones. They may not get my series, right? Because they aren't going to publish them fast enough. It's not going to work out the way I want it to work out for them. But maybe I'll give them some of my standalones. Maybe I'll be in an anthology. I'll do different things with publishers still, because they still have their place. But that's not my primary focus. My primary focus is over on the indie side, because that's where the long-term money is. That's where the money is that's going to sustain me over a longer period of time. But there is more work involved with that. So I have to do that. And I have to balance that with the fact that if I still want to continue to teach and help writers and stuff like that, well, then that has to fit into that mix somewhere. And so I have to be really careful about how that balances out. So, anyway. So yeah, that's it. I'm kind of leaning towards the middle too. There's a lot of cool new options for indie authors, though, that are coming available, as far as audio and translations and stuff like that, that I'm like, hey, this is actually a pretty good time to be an author. But you do have to engage in that. You kind of have to merge onto that freeway of what's happening right now,
Right. Well, that said, what's happening with translations?
So translations, the cool thing is, so it used to be AI translation was terrible, right? It's terrible. It's like Google Translate. Like, you can have a conversation, but you translate a book with Google Translate and oh my God, you have a mess, right? But we have better options now where you can translate and then have a proofer who speaks that language proof it for you, right? Which is a more efficient way. First of all, it's more efficient for everybody. A lot of the translators even like it more. Like, they would rather just proof something that you send over than to have to figure out what you're trying to say with each thing or whatever, So there's some opportunities there that make it more affordable for indie authors to translate, and there's some testing that we can do to see, like that link you sent me earlier, how's that book doing in Germany in English? If it's doing really well, maybe I do want to do a translation, right?
Right.
So maybe so there's ways for us to gather data that we haven't been able to gather before as well. So there's all kinds of options out there. I think there's all kinds of things that we can do to streamline those processes, that type of process, by just using AI and other tools that are available now. I'm not. I don't think AI is taking our jobs at this point, but it can certainly make your job easier. You
Yes.
know, it can make it easier. But anyway, so for translations and stuff like that, that's one of the things that's happening. Is it used to be you just either had to sell somebody the translation rights, or you paid big bucks for translations of your
Oh
books.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like big bucks, like $4,000 or $5,000 a book. You
Right.
know, and then it's hard to make that money back. You know,
Oh,
um,
it's impossible. I
so
think it'd have to take off like crazy.
yeah, I mean, there's some romance authors and stuff like that that have done it, but the
Right.
German market likes this mystery and noir, dark fiction type thing. So you
Right.
test, see if your books do well in Germany and English. You test that. You can test it with like Amazon ads or whatever, and
Right.
if it does well in English, then you can go, well, okay, maybe a translation is worthwhile, and I can do a translation and have that over there. And
Right.
at the same time, what that means is I can have a German page for that book on my website and sell it direct in Germany,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Because I can translate that page way easier than I used to be able to do. You know what I mean? So there's all kinds of things that you can do
Right.
that just make it a more viable option than it used to be. Now, I mean, I'm not doing audio translations yet. Oh my goodness, I mean, that, that's like a whole other ball game that I'm not even close to doing that. But you know what I mean? There's opportunities
Sure.
out there. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Seeing as we're working right now, let's see, it's October, almost the end of October, almost November, December, January.
yeah,
So we're essentially working for 2025.
yeah.
What do you see as the big enchilada on the horizon for 2025?
So for 2025, I
What's the
think
big new toy?
big new toy. Man, it's a good question. I don't know. There's some distribution models and stuff coming out, and some new tools for marketing on the horizon, I think, that will help authors who are willing to engage with them change the game.
Right.
Because, like, for instance, like, creating that blurb or summary for your novel, um, there's some cool AI tools that can help you do that and help you create some marketing copy by basically you're just feeding it your novel. And so some of the things that people are worried about, like, oh yeah, I'm training the model. No, you're not. Not if you're creating your own. You're basically creating your own GPT environment, and all it's doing is looking at exactly what you gave it,
Right.
and creating summaries and creating book blurbs and creating marketing copy and things like that.
Right.
Even images, things like that align with your book, that align with marketing, that are going to do well on Facebook or wherever. So I think the primary thing that's going to change in 2025 is marketing in general. Like, there are a lot of tasks
Interesting.
that we do now for marketing that we're just not going to do, or we're going to have somebody check it over or whatever, but we're not, like, those things are going to just get faster and easier.
Right.
That's probably the biggest new tools, because I think the other thing that's happening is AI imaging is getting better, but AI images is still the most controversial area of AI at the moment.
Right.
So
Right.
we don't know what lawsuits are going to come out of that, whatever. But the other thing is, I think that the AI, the big AI hype, I think, is going to go away. And what I mean by that is, first of all, AI is, these companies are bleeding money right now because it
Oh, they
requires
are.
so much power and so much
Right.
com, computing
Computing
power
power.
to do it. So, like, Google is bringing nuclear reactors online to power their AI,
I've
right?
heard that. Yes.
Well, that's ridiculous, dude, because somewhere they're going to have to make that money back, right?
Right.
Somebody has to make money on this thing. And right now, the companies are not making money because it's so expensive to do. They can't charge, OpenAI can't charge you $20 a month for Chat GPT and
Right.
get their money's worth, right?
Right.
So I think some of the hype around some of those tools is going to go away, because I think these companies are going to have to reevaluate, like, how much we're using AI, what that looks like. And I think there'll be some regulations that impact that too, some government regulations and stuff like that about what you can and can't do, how you
Right.
can and can't train the model. Plus the
Right.
fact that when training the models, they're running out of information to train the models. Like,
Right.
they can only access so much information publicly. So they're trying to pay people to, hey, help us train this model by writing these things or doing these things to help us train the model, because we're out of information. We can only access so much.
So I
So the
guess what you're
model can
saying
only get
is,
so good. Yeah.
I guess what you're saying is AI is not going to be sentient anytime soon.
Oh, highly doubtful. Highly doubtful.
Anytime
And the
soon. That's
reason is
good.
that
That's good news, folks.
transition. Yeah, and that transition, the problem is that transition from what it is now to sentience is a big leap.
Right.
It's just a big leap.
Right.
And anyway, and a huge leap in computing power. Think about how much brain, if you designed a computer that was as powerful as your brain, how much power that would take. And now we need 40 million of those. Okay, well that's a problem. You know, we got electric cars and Teslas sucking down our grid, let alone adding AI into the mix, all that kind of stuff. At some point, the power grid has to, we see Cuba in the dark for freaking a week. The
Right.
power grid somewhere has to get upgraded for any of this stuff to make sense, right?
Right.
So anyway, AI is not the big bad thing that people think it is, and I don't think it's going to make this sudden leap to it's in everything everywhere, just simply because of cost and the amount of computing power that it takes.
So
Anyway,
Hal is a ways away. I never realized in 2001 that Hal, because of his orders, was actually trying to kill the crew. I haven't seen it in a long time. He had like impossible orders, right? And so like they were trying to see that monolith, but no one was supposed to know about it. So Hal thought, well, therefore I have to kill you all.
Yeah.
Is that true? Is that
Yeah, that sort of. I mean, that's kind of the way, but yeah, and that's the other part that's interesting is like when we put regulations around AI, the question is how does it determine how to react to those regulations?
Right.
And what's technically right and wrong? Can AI, create moral reason? And the answer is no, it can't. So when it creates a dilemma, it's kind of like Isaac Asimov's robots. It's going to freeze at some point, stuff like that. But yeah, the only other thing that you and I were going to talk about, we were kind of talking about like Draft to Digital, Publish Drive, Street Lib, distributors like that.
Well, yes, we were going to talk about distributors, and I had on my list here. I went to turn on my Publish Drive account because I had like 15 books I put on there or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's gone. It's completely gone. It's just like you have to start like if you want to join whatever, and it said your free period is over. Now you have to pay.
Free trial period, something like that.
My free trial period must have lasted 5 years, but
well, they've made a lot of Publish Drive has made a lot of changes in the last.
Tell me about Publish Drive. What's going on with that?
So, okay, so here's the deal with Publish Drive. So Publish Drive, as you know, is an aggregate. Basically, they get your book out to places. Now they have some marketing options, and they're improving their marketing options at Publish Drive. But for the most part, what they are is a distributor. They're an ebook distributor. They do the distribution for you to the different platforms. The primary difference between them and Draft to Digital per se is that Draft to Digital takes a percentage of your royalties, right? So they take a percentage, which makes sense depending on how much you sell, right?
Right.
Publish Drive instead is a subscription-based thing, but you get 100% of your royalties. So if you're selling enough books, Publish Drive makes a lot of sense,
right?
Because you get 100% of the royalties, but you pay them a monthly fee. Well, the monthly fee is, if you're selling enough books, is way less than 10% of your royalties that Draft to Digital is taking. So it makes total sense, right?
Yes.
So, but neither one of them are. So Publish Drive has better sales reporting than Draft to Digital. Their reports are a little more sophisticated than Draft to Digital. So basically, Publish Drive is a little more advanced version of Draft to Digital that if you sell enough books will cost you less. If you don't sell enough books, it'll actually cost you more. So it just depends on how much you're selling wide. But they do get your book in more marketplaces than Draft to Digital, just not by a lot, but by a certain amount. They've got some other smaller regional type things that they get you into. You might make a couple bucks off those, you might not. It just depends. So it might be worth it. But they have some other publishing assistant tools and stuff like that you can use. Those cost you a little extra, but they're kind of worth it. But they do have some new marketing options that they're working on where they can help you get on the front page of Apple Books or whatever, things like that, which, like everything else, is a pay to play. But you can do it from their platform, which does make it in some ways like there's some definite value there. If you're an experienced author and you're publishing enough books that you're actually going to pay for that, or if you're starting out as an author but you think that someday you're going to sell enough books and write enough books to make that worthwhile. So public career authors, like your drafted authors, like your drafted up there, they take 10% of your royalties. Is really not that how much you're selling. Maybe that's a couple bucks a month for you. So, something like Publish Drive doesn't.
Right.
And StreetLib is another one that's kind of an up and comer, but they're kind of like as Drafted Digital and not nearly as good as Publish Drive. But right now, so
okay,
you know what I mean? Like you could be getting it on that'll turn into something great. Right now, is it something great? No. Is it okay? Yes.
right.
So,
right.
Now, there's
Do I with my indie books? Do I belong to Drafted Digital and Publish Drive and StreetLib at the same time? Even though these aggregate publishers sell to basic, you just gotta kind of choose one, right?
You choose one. And so part of the thing is like you could, if you have books on Drafted Digital, you could pull them off Drafted Digital and put them on Publish Drive. But if you have reviews on those books, like on Apple, they won't follow you to the new platform. So like this would be like if you have stuff on, like I have stuff on Drafted Digital, I'm not going to move to Publish Drive. Now I may use Publish Drive going forward for certain projects, especially if you're like managing anthologies and stuff like that. They have a great tool for splitting royalties automatically for you. You don't have to touch it. You don't have to do anything. I like that because I like not doing things. You know what I mean? So I'll put some future books on Publish Drive, but I'm not going to move my books from the past to Publish Drive because like there's one that I have right now that I'm writing with another author that I would move to Publish Drive. It'd make it easier for us to split royalties and stuff, but it's up on pre-order through Drafted Digital on other retailers. So if I pull it from there, that pulls the pre-order. Don't want to do that because I've got pre-orders. So,
and I find with something like Drafted Digital, if I have a BookBub, then I kill it on Drafted Digital. But without that type of promo, like it's very promo friendly. Without the promos, you kind of get lost a little bit. And you make some money, but not like nearly as much as you would make if you had a decent promo going. Maybe that's typical, maybe it's not. I don't know.
No, it's pretty typical. Although, so what I've been doing is in direct sales from my website, I have Genius Link, which then sends the person to the retailer of their choice, right? And so it says buy it on my website for this much, or it's $9.99 on other retailers, and that's a Genius Link that then sends them to wherever they want to go, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever they want to go. Well, what that does, it enables me to track their links still. So even if they buy it on Amazon, but they came to my website first, I get their email and their information. That's good. I like that. But also what it does is then I end up actually making more, like the last few months since I've started selling direct on my website, I make more from Drafted Digital than I ever have. And that's just because there's an opening there for people to go to Drafted Digital. So even if they come to my page and they want to buy it somewhere else, they have that opportunity where I wasn't necessarily showing them that before.
Right. One thing in particular, and this is just tangentially speaking, I find that Overdrive, I sell a decent amount of books on Overdrive, and when I look at the statements, I'm like, who knew? And I've a couple of my friends, my college friends, are like, oh, I get my books on Overdrive now. And where's Overdrive from?
Well, that's a library thing that's been around for a while.
Oh, is that what it is?
But I've done well on Overdrive in the past and even recently because basically that's how like people at libraries and stuff like that get your books. And so as you become well known enough that libraries will actually stock your books, even your ebooks, a lot of people, that's how they get their ebooks anymore, is they just borrow them from the library. Same as they do physical books. So for us as authors, we get paid anyway, it all works out.
So Genius Link, see, I told you, Troy's the dude. Like, you get to school and did you study for that social studies test? And today it's Genius Link. I never heard of it.
Oh,
like you always have something I've never heard of.
It's great because you can track like who's who's going where and how many clicks you've had on that from your website and stuff like that. So you can track like how many people are coming to my page and then clicking on the Genius link to go out and find my book somewhere else. And so it's really useful. It's good information.
I'll have to find Genius link for morons for myself and start slow, because I'm slow, you know. All right. So next month we're at a 30-minute mark.
Yeah, we are.
It always goes so fast. I want to continue this aggregate talk, but only in a different direction. I want to talk about more like the Substacks. And like, say you and I collaborate on a book and we're like, let's do something really different. And we're just going to put it up on Substack, or we're just going to put it up on PayHip, or we're just going to put it in a Shopify store. Something outside. I'd like to talk about that next month a little bit. Like, there's got to be a tremendous amount of opportunities there too that I'm just totally missing, or not doing right at present. For instance, currently I'm propagating my Shopify store, but it's not live yet, and I should have it live while I'm doing this. But it takes a little bit of work.
Yeah, exactly. It does. So, there's a little bit of work involved with everything. So
you'll come back. You'll come back with, next month. We'll talk about that.
You betcha. You betcha.
And you'll probably be like at a conference on Mars.
Something like that.
I'll be like, God damn, why did I miss that?
Well, actually, you're going to have to catch me between Vegas, and I'm going to Mexico the first week in December, but not for a conference. I'm going to go hit the beach, my friend. Do some diving. That's what I'm going to do.
All right. Yeah. Don't get hurt. Don't get hurt diving.
Not going to do that. Yeah, no. No sharks.
All right.
No sharks.
See, I don't know why more people don't become writers. Like, look at the life. Look at the life we have. Look at the life Troy has. He just does what he wants when he wants to do it. That's it. That's what it's all about, right, Troy?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly how it works.
All right. And it's with that, everybody. I will say thank you, Troy. And where can everybody get you at? Troy, I'll put the link down below. TroyLambertWrites.com. I already know it.
Yep.
And it has stuff for readers and it has stuff for authors. And it's very valuable stuff. All right, everybody. Ciao, ciao. Troy, ciao, ciao.
All right. We'll see you.